What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Non-Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Manny Lamson, and again, we are joined by a phenomenal airman in the Air Force, Michael Maldonado. Currently, he is a Security Forces Airmen at Dyess Air Force Base, and he's not just your normal airman. This guy has been on a mission the past 3 years, just crushing everything he is doing. I'm just going to highlight some of the things we talk about really quick, but before I do, remember, if you are listening to this, you're obviously wanting to learn. My challenge to you is to push this to somebody else. Share this with somebody close to you. Send it to somebody you care about so they can become a better leader. The purpose of this podcast is to pass on this info to as many people as possible so they can develop their toolkit at a lower level in their career or in their military job or civilian jobs and already start excelling at that level. We wait too long to develop leaders. We need to start young. So this is how we do it. We pass on our info. We talk about it. We tell stories and we learn from our mistakes. So just highlight some of the things that we talk about. Look to your left and your right when you're trying to be a leader. Empower others. Customer service, because he did work jobs before joining the military. Ask questions to figure out the why. Check yourself. Why? Always have a why. Why do you do what you do? And then obviously meeting new people is huge with Michael and everybody I talk to when it comes to leadership traits. Those are just a couple. And I'm just pumped every time we get on these episodes and just chat. So without further ado, let's get into this. And if you take something from it, get ready to add it to your toolkit. What is up, everybody? Thanks for joining another episode of the Non-Standard Podcast. Again, like I mentioned in the intro, I'm Manny. This is Michael. And today we're going to dive deep into some new generation of leaders out there that are just crushing it and everything. So later on, I'll let Michael brag on how he's been doing. But like I said, if you take away anything from this, if you learn anything, or you just want to pass it on to somebody, it's pretty dang simple. You can save it, you can share it, you can follow, you can message myself on the outside if you have any questions. But with that being said, like I do every episode, we always start off with the 3 H's. Then if we need to open up some more conversation, we'll talk about my leadership philosophy and how it applies in Michael's life, and then what he sees about it, what he likes and doesn't like about it. Then we'll talk about some leadership traits that anybody can use. Then we'll follow it up with the book recommendations at the end. Then we'll call it a day. All right, Mike, let's go. Hit me with your 3 H's, with the first one being hometown. I don't know if you've ever told me where you're originally from. If you have, I apologize, but I don't know if you have. I'll see you right here.
Hometown, Lake Station, Indiana.
You did. I don't think you told me that. I would have known if I probably would have. Because I would have said go Hoosiers or something. Because I have a really good. So crazy story already to begin. Really good friend of mine from SrA school. He was a B-52 Wizzo. He's out now. He was a Hoosier. So when we were in Pensacola, we would always have bets wherever we go. Who can get a go Cougs or a go Hoosier wherever we went? Because those colleges represent pretty well, like globally around the U.S. Usually if you wear the IU sign or the WSU logo, like I would always yell like go Cougs, and somebody would be like go Cougs, or he'd be like, I think it's go Hoosiers, I think is what you guys say. But anyways, crazy story. He was from Indiana, a good friend of mine. But yeah, Indiana.
Yes. So there's not a lot to do there.
He said too.
So, but I met a lot of people that are from Indiana. In the military. I know 3 just from my unit. And my family members, I'm 6th generation military. So, serving is like in our family. So that's pretty interesting.
Helps me with one of my questions later. All right. What was growing up like, man? Like, obviously Indiana I assume is it country or rural or like,
It's interesting. It goes by like counties. So there's like Lake County, Porter County, LaPorte County. What else is there? There's another one, but it's basically all counties. So it's not rural or anything like that. And let's see, we're like an hour from Chicago, 2.5 hours from Indy. And once you go further down south in Indiana, because I'm from the Northwest, it's where you get like the corn, the cows, everything.
Because Indiana's long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah, I remember trying to do my geography here. So,
Yeah. And then just growing up, I mean, it was interesting, because our sports sucked. So, and we were kind of in between like two bigger schools, and we were just kind of like, here. So I guess it was pretty interesting to deal with that, like smaller-ish school. And you really have to know everyone, even the people you didn't like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to go back.
You do know I'm wearing a Bucky shirt just for you today. So for those not...
I should have got my Bucky shirt.
That are on audio, Mike just went to Bucky's for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was super proud of him. That's like a Texas like blessing right there. So I was glad you had fun doing that. I pulled out of the closet. I was like, oh, I know what I'm going to wear today. All right, what do you got for some heroes?
All right, so this one was pretty hard, but looking deep down into like a hero, someone you obviously look up to, one would be my grandfather, because he was like the rock of the family, and the first time I ever seen him cry was when I went to basic training. And that was the only time I've ever seen my grandpa cry. So that was pretty nerve-wracking for me, and then going back home on leave and stuff like that, I can feel, like that energy, like I can feel like, he wants to cry, but he's not going to do it. Yeah. So, and then my second one is my cousin Mike. And my cousin Mike is, I want to say, like, basically my dad, because my dad wasn't around. He didn't, like, come to my graduation when I graduated from high school. And that was pretty harsh for me. But my cousin Mike literally did, pick me up in stride. He took care of me, helped my mom with me, bought things for me and things like that. Yeah. And him and my dad actually went and go do everything together. And, my cousin Michael always tells me I try to tell your dad to do this, don't do that, and the other. But my family Maldonados are hard headed, so and my dad's not a Maldonado, but we're still all hard headed, right? So yeah, those are the two.
What are some leadership traits you look? Obviously, you don't see them when you're younger, right? Like I look back at my grandpa, I don't see leadership traits back then, and same as my cousin. But now looking back, is there anything you see in them that you notice in your leadership style, or that you could be like, oh, I like that. I might borrow that. What do you see any or?
I would say the strong sense for family.
Okay, yeah.
Because obviously my cousin Mike, I'm not obviously his son, but I would label him as my father, just because he's willing to listen, give me advice, and having two men step up to fill the role of a father, which is my grandpa did too. But I never felt comfortable enough on if my father were to actually come to me and say, hey, do you have any questions about anything? Because I'm here. And it was more of I had to find out and navigate myself. So I would say the sense of family, a sense of work ethic, that we're going to get this things done for the family, take care of the family,
How do you take that into the military? How do you take family and work ethic? How do you apply it in your day to day? Have you done it? Do you know you're doing it? What do you see in that?
Well, sometimes, I learned this recently, you might not see everything because you're in it.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing.
Sort of in your career, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But you're at that point where you're just hacking the mist, right? Just doing the job and tunnel vision, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So you have to stop, and look around, smell the roses, right? Is what they say.
Yeah.
But just look to the person to the left and the right of you, because we're all going through our own things. We're all dealing with our own things, and it's important to empower others, and that's including cheer them on, celebrate with them, and push them when you can, kind of like what you do with me.
Yep.
And I think those are being in the moment and looking around, which is very hard to do. And
but it's all about taking care of the people around you in what I would define as your world. Because the saying goes, we're going to change the world one random act of kindness at a time.
Yeah.
But it's your world, not the whole world.
Yeah.
So
nice. We'll dive into the tunnel vision and family stuff more when we get into where you are right now too. But let's continue on, man. What do you got for what's a hardship, man? Like what pushed you? What makes you what?
Okay. This is a two-answer question for me because I prepared.
Okay.
A little bit. The first one I put defeating the statistic of growing up without a father.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm going to read a few, and this is just from Rochester Area Fatherhood Network.org. So I can't verify.
Think he's still there. Oh. What's up? Well, I will.
Okay, cool. Second name's term. So this is for children living without fathers in the home, right? And it says 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes, which is 5 times above the average. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, which is 32% above average. 85% of all children who show behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes, 20 times above the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. And then at the flip side of it, it says children with fathers who are involved are 40% less likely to repeat a grade in school, are 70% less likely to drop out of school, are more likely to get A's in school, and are more likely to enjoy school and engage in extracurricular activities. Yeah. So.
Dang. I didn't know the impact was that large. It was like for kids growing up. That's yeah.
And then the second one is my divorce, which was in June 24th, 2022. And navigating that path and everything with my daughter. So.
Man. And then I think, I've met your daughter. We've done a couple daddy-daughter dances together. That's been super fun. And I know that'll come up with some leadership styles, as far as having that lead by example mindset for those close to us. Okay. Now let's get into, we transition, right? You're working through these hardships. One of them as you're in the military. What's your sort of military career-ish, for those people out there that are interested, like what do you do? Where are you at? So we can gauge your level of leadership and see how far above the normal you already are.
Okay. Well, I consider myself pretty average. I am 5 years in the military. Stationed at Dyess, Security Forces trying to make staff, the percentages are trash.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on that. Right? 5 years in April. And
And
just
then
working from there.
So you mentioned family heritage generation for the military. Is that why you enlisted, or were there some other factors that went into it? Why'd you enlist?
I enlisted for my family, for my kids, and education. And I needed to get out of Indiana. Love Hoosiers, love them to death, got Hoosier blood, but it's not me. And my first duty station, funny enough, was North Dakota.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. I mean, I love the military. I love the structure and things like that, and just to have your span of influence.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of eyes on cops to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And it's, if people know your name in the military, there's one of two reasons: good and bad, right? And you always want to strive to be the good.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm blessed to have good leadership. That will look out and be like, hey, quarterly awards are coming up, annuals, things like that. Like, let's push, for these things. Go, like, we're telling you ahead of time so you can do some things right, put some things down on paper, and just push, right? So.
And then, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know if...
I'm 30.
Okay, I was going to say you do not look like the age I would expect you to be in the military for 5 years. So I was going to ask, what'd you do after high school before you
So in between that time, first I worked at Long John Silver's, which I learned a lot of leadership from that, and just dealing with customer service.
Yeah, no, it's
that
huge.
was just the beginning, and from there I transitioned to be security at one of our casinos in Michigan City. And I did that for a few years. And then I became a correction officer for 2 years. And I learned so much. You get humbled real quick. And now working Security Forces, put me anywhere, please. Because I can do it all day compared to what I was doing for 2 years. Yeah.
And then did you want Security Forces when you enlisted after being a corrections officer, or how'd that work?
I did.
Okay.
I told my recruiter, this is what I want. If I don't get it, I'm going somewhere else.
Luckily,
so he found a way.
I feel like you get pretty easy.
Yeah. Because he was like, I can't guarantee you a job 100%. And I was like, okay, well, I can't guarantee I'm going to enlist for the Air Force.
Yeah. Funny how that works. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We got...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was in the DEP program for over a year because I was waiting for a medical waiver on my knee because I had 2 surgeries in one knee. I tore my meniscus and I tore my ACL my senior year of high school.
Dang, okay.
And it took so long that I was almost going to join the Army.
Dang. Let's talk about some leadership in the civilian side, man. So I've had a couple people on my podcast that aren't in the military. And I'm always curious with, obviously, my background being very military since high school. So I haven't, lived that normal civilian life, I did some part-time jobs when I was in college doing reserves, like working at SrA Tires. I worked at SrA Tires when I was in high school because my dad was manager there. So I learned a lot about customer service there. But what did, you mentioned working at Long John's, they had leadership stuff there with customer service. How does that apply, man? For those listening that aren't in the military, how can they take the normal job like that, find leadership skills from it, or do they teach you? Do they have programs for you to go through? How does that work?
I would say the first thing is ask questions and ask a lot of them. The worst thing someone can tell you is no, or I don't know what you're talking about. And you go from there. Long John Silver's really taught me about people who are irritated, right? Because it's food service. And just seeing like your managers dealing with people, cashiers dealing with people, the drive-through window dealing with people. You see people at the highest and the lowest. And it's really funny, right? You'd be complaining, I want extra ketchup. Okay, well, that's 25 cents. And they're like, what? You know?
Like,
and you have to deal with that, right? You have to deal with that, yeah. And then transitioning to corrections, the model there was firm, fair, and consistent. So if you're consistently a jerk, then you're a jerk, right? But if you're consistently a good person, you know, good, nice, you know, good morning type person, right? Then you're just the same all the time. And then people will catch on and notice when things aren't right. And then you're like, okay, what's up? You know, what's going on? Right. And that's the part of getting to know your people.
Yeah.
And, between food service, security, and corrections, that pretty much molded me in the military. I didn't have to do barely anything else besides like the paperwork and stuff.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I've noticed that from a lot of the more experienced people that join the military a little later in life. Those little things I don't have to worry about as much as a flight commander. You know, when I was in AFB, I had an airman who was like 36, Airman Bowman, and I was just getting to know him as a normal guy, and he's telling me this stuff like, oh, I ride motorcycles, I have like 2 kids. I'm like, bro, how old are you? He's like 36. I'm like, what are you doing, man? He's like, just wanted, you know, a good salary, good job. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad to have you, because he was crushing it, man. Just like, I didn't have to worry about some of those things that, you know, that I would have to worry about with somebody who's 18 to 20 years old, you know, like he had some of that stuff together. And so it was nice for me, because I could then put my attention to somebody else that may need it a little bit more. That's good. All right. So we talked about, what you did before. Customer service is a great, and it sounds like a lot of those jobs are leading by example, right? Like you're seeing, you know, it's not necessarily you're being taught, but it's what you see, you know, see people do, see people act. That's not what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And you just collect it all from there and continue to move on. Moving into the military though, did you notice that going through basic and going through your tech school, like what did you notice in the younger generation? Because you were older than them. So like, did you show them anything, or did you take some of that lead by example and show them what to do? Or I know, like you said, you're more likely just focus on your job, you know, like focus on tech school, you're in the tunnel, but did you ever branch out and look around then, like you talk about looking around now, and see what you were doing?
I got to see a lot of bad examples. People get in trouble and everything like that, but I didn't give no one like little nuggets to take and stuff like that. I was more in the mindset of learning and honestly just not getting in trouble, right? Because it's so easy to get in trouble. And, you know, tech school, basic training me versus now, it's night and day, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just getting in the motions of things, learning what to do, what versus what not to do. And I was just surviving. The survival mode.
Nice. Perfect. Then you get to Dyess. Tell us about so for those that don't know, Michael and I met through what we call the RAD program. So a few of you have heard on some past episodes, Rapid Airmen Development, where we do a lot of rucks here at Dyess. I'm a firm believer in doing hard things to become a better leader outside of the workplace, and then it translates into the workplace, because I've seen it in a lot of airmen here just crushing their day-to-day jobs by physically doing hard things. It just builds this tougher mindset into you. It allows you to deal with stress a lot easier in the workplace that are just very simple to deal with anyways, but it helps just clear a lot of that out. So talk about how you why did you take up wanting to do RAD, you know, do these rucks, do these hard things, and how's it impacted you?
Well, when I was in Minot, I did the same job for about 3.5 years. So you could say I was one of those dirtbag airmen, right, that just wanted to do the bare minimum and go home, right? And then towards the end of like leaving, I was like, you can do so much more, man. Like, you're just not doing it. And I just had to have the face-to-face talk with myself. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? You know, like, because I pushed for a strat, but then I was kind of like, well, did you deserve it, right? Yeah. I didn't get it, right? Of course. That's because I didn't do it. I didn't go do the hard things, as you said. And then when I got the Dyess, it was like a fresh start, get plugged in, do the hard things. And that's when I found RAD, because I was looking up Dyess Air Force Base, different things to do, what the Security Forces does. And I'm like, this is it. Bingo, got him. This is not Minot, North Dakota. This is Abilene, Texas, where it's hot outside. Right. And I just took that in stride. And I even took it with me when I was deployed.
Yeah.
And I went hard in the paint. And I was like, I don't want to lose this. So there was 3 separate occasions that really stuck to me when I was deployed. And, if you know anything about the Bible, if something happens to you more than twice, you should probably listen.
Yeah, right? And I was going to bring that. I'll probably touch on that later, like the religious side of, developing leadership, because I have had another leadership question, and we can talk about later is, how do we talk about faith and religion in a workplace, to be a leader, because it's a tough one, but we'll can that one for the side, but continue with, it's happened twice, it happens a third time. Hey.
Yeah, so I had an airman, peer, talk to me and was like, Maldonado, like, why are you always like this hula, right? This high speed?
Yeah.
Even at home station? And I was like, yeah, because this is me, right? An idle mind is dangerous. And then the second time comes around, and it was a senior NCO, and he was like, Maldonado, why do you do what you do? And at first, it was random, because I didn't know how to answer that question, right? Because I didn't know, the context of what he's asking me.
Yeah.
Because I literally just went in his office or something, and then he asked me. But then, thinking back on it, he was like, well, I can only speculate. But he was like, why are you putting so much of your time, of you out there, right? And when I was deployed, I was part of a volunteer organization. So we did things like plan events, plan going away. What else did we do? That's basically it, right? But it's all volunteer. You have to organize all this stuff. We organized 4 different wing events, and we actually led the base pool party, which is crazy. And then the last event, the third event, was because I was playing the go away party, and downrange, sometimes it's hard to coordinate food and stuff like that. Especially Americanized food, like Pizza Hut, which is what I chose, Pizza Hut. And this guy tells me, he's like, Maldonado, you're gonna get an achievement medal. So what are you doing this for? And I'm like, why do you think I'm doing it for an achievement medal? I'm doing this for the 160 people, that haven't had stuffed crust pizza in about 5.5 months. And he kind of didn't get it, because I kind of got irritated, because I'm not always medal chasing, award chasing. And some people are, and don't get me wrong, I will appreciate an award, right? But that's not the main goal. My main goal is people, right? And those 3 events, it's just okay, what's going on, and then that's when I noticed that people notice me, what I'm doing. And when I was deployed, I was super busy. School, was the president of the organization, as I said, the volunteer. I did some class work where you taught other airmen, and then hard charger. Yeah.
What I do want to say, where asked is, so before your deployment, you started doing some rad stuff, some rucking and moving, and then you said that sort of transitioned to your deployment, right? So what you came to Dyess, you saw rad as an opportunity to to just do what? Do hard things, to show ruck, or what'd you see in RAD that made Dyess stand out?
I like the A in RAD, Rapid Airmen Development. And, you hear the buzzwords, big A airmen, but it's all humans, everyone, and the ranks span from E1 to E9 to 04, maybe even higher, right? And it's just being part of that collective, and that inspired me to do 75 hard, which I almost completed. Almost did complete it. I fell off once I got back from deployment, but I completed the Norwegian, and that was tough.
Yeah, it's hard.
That was tough
because you did that out there, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can only imagine the people looking at me and they're like, "What is this dude doing, dude?" Like, I was training after work. I went to the gym before work, and it was an everyday thing. And people were like, "Dude, like, are you okay?" And I'm just like, "I'm trying to do a Norwegian. That's 18.64 miles. Like, do you know how far that is?"
It's in 4.5 hours. You can't just walk it. Like,
no. That really inspired me to do even harder things.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you with this morning. I just did 7-mile ruck with 35 pounds with an M4.
That's nothing now. That's our Saturday morning walks right there, man.
Yeah. It was like, man, if I can do this, I can just picture so many people doing the same thing I can do.
It's crazy, man. I tell so many people, it blows my mind to see how easy it is to control you by doing these simple things. Like, it's just mind-blowing, like you're saying, like, man, if I could do it, like, anybody could do it. But when we say it, it almost sounds too easy, right? Like, it sounds too easy for us to be like, just go out and walk, and you'll transition to a better person. People are like, no. That's not going to happen. I need to do something crazy, right? Like, I don't know, whatever, like run a marathon or walk 18.4 miles. I don't know, but it literally starts that simple. It's the simple things that add up, and add up into hard things. Talk about doing hard things that has made you a better leader. Like, that concept, that line is thrown around a lot right now with a lot of social media reels, like Goggins and Jocko's and guys like that, just being like, go do this, carry the boats, which are great sayings. I love them, but they can go on deaf ears for a lot of people. But talk about how does doing hard things make you a better leader in the workplace? What have you seen? Because I know what I've seen, but what have you seen? Have you seen it, or do you notice it?
Yeah, I've seen it. And the biggest things for me, right, I'll use this morning as an example. I went and did this ruck with one of my buddies, and it's my day off. Like, how many people would go on your day off to ruck with one of your best friends? And people are like, "What are you doing?" Because my people are at work, like, this is my shift, right? And they're like, "Are you okay? You already did this." And I was like, "Yeah, but he did, And I wanted to push him and show him it can be done. I did it. You weren't there, but I did it, right? And just showing him, pacing him, speaking words of life over him. It's like, "You got it, dude. Like, it's easy. Like, we're almost done, dude. Like, don't even worry about it. One step at a time. Let's turn this corner. Let's go down this road, turn that other corner, and then we're done." I mean, it's just that simple, right? But you're in your head, right? And, he completed it in time. And it was just a lot for him. And, rucking in general is hard if you don't train.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the biggest thing, is I wouldn't want to tell someone to do something if I'm not going to do it. Right. And I tell everybody, I'm like, "Hey, let's go do this event, right? You get an achievement medal. You get to show off your skills in all these different categories. And best of all, it's free. You just show up. You go do it. You go do it. Right? And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'll do it with you. Let me know what day. I'll try to get off or something." And I pushed my coworkers to do it and things like that. And, there were 6 people that signed up to do this. 3 people showed up.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
And I was just a bonus person.
So I'm going to do it next time. Can I do it?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
What if
I don't know if you can shoot, though.
And you told me what I was going to do, and I knew what I was going to do, and I just did it.
That's a good question. I don't know, but it'd be pretty interesting to find out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, just doing it.
Yeah.
That's like 95% of the battle,
Dude,
and
it's
my,
the battle.
and my, my buddy wasn't able to finish the full course, because of the ruck and, how it affected his body and stuff like that. But then, I had to remind him, like, you're better than the 155 people that didn't show up of our unit,
Yeah.
And that might be a tough pill to swallow because you failed ultimately, right? But you have to see it as, I got up 4:30 this morning, ate, hydrated, got dressed, put the weight in the ruck, got there at 5:30, finished the ruck by, let's say, around 8-ish, right? And I just couldn't continue after that. But it was everything before that you did.
And that's all a win. All those things, like
everything.
Yeah.
And now for next time how tough it's gonna be.
Nice.
Because it's not, let's just go for a jolly 5K. No.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's cool. And you've already had a couple things that we'll cover as well later. But yeah, I love that. And what I've seen in doing hard things, it's allowed me to use that time also to de-stress or to eliminate the stress of the day coming up. I take a lot of time in these walks and these rucks to plan out my day, figure out how to de-stress going into the day so that when I get to work, like that's already a win for me right there. Like some people may wake up, roll into work, and they're thinking of what they're going to do to work, so they're already stressed out. I've sort of eliminated those stresses by doing those hard things early in the day so that when I get to work, I can focus on winning, and being a better role model, being a better follower, being a better leader, instead of sort of playing catch up as I get to work. And then by the end of the day where I get my rhythm, it's too late. You're sort of just in that groove. Let's see. So what are some of these, what's motivating you to keep going, So you did the Norwegian, you crushed your deployment, you lost a bunch of weight, you won you got coined a few times. I remember you telling me, you come back, you do the achievement medal for your job, what's next, how has that all transitioned? Do you feel it fizzling out, or what's motivating you to keep going? That's one thing I try to ask people is, a lot of people go through phases of doing hard things. They see some good results, but there's always that, you get to the peak and you sort of you get back down. You got to catch yourself, get back going. Where are you at along there?
I would say I'm on the going back up.
Yeah.
Because once I got back from deployment, I kind of got a little comfortable, gained a little weight.
That word comfortable.
Yeah. But now, I want to do better, right? And it's recognizing it, but then doing it.
Yeah.
And I set goals to do the expert defender badge, which is the part of the ruck. I did that, completed that. I'm waiting on the test results for out of cycle staff testing to see how many points I made it or missed it by. Right.
Okay.
So there's that. And also for my kids, for my family to, it's all about your why. Because when I did my Norwegian, I'm like, why are you doing this? For real, why are you doing this? And I was like, I'm doing it for my family. I'm like, okay, that. What I did was I folded Indiana Hoosier flag and I put it in my ruck. And I was like, you cannot stop. You're not, no. You have to complete this because you literally just you design this for your family and you can't not fail. Right. And that's really what pushed me, and, you know, praying about 250 times, you know, because mile 14, you're like,
dude, it doesn't get easier. I've done it like 3 to 5 times. I've failed like 2 times. It does not get easier. No, you those double digits. You're like, this sucks. I can be in the best like pace or whatever. Like, no, it doesn't. Like,
yeah, and in that moment, it's you versus your feet and your legs. Because if you overstep once, you're cramped, you're locked out, you're done. So you have to find like that rhythm where you just like get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about a couple things you hit that I really love. You talked about your why. You also talked about finding when we fall off, right? That's always a huge thing. I see a lot in good leaders is we notice when we fall off track, we notice how quick to get back on track. That's one thing I try to teach a lot of people is, hey, it's fine if you fail, but noticing when you fail or when you're slacking, how quick you get back on. That usually makes a huge difference in a lot of people in their success. Most people are accustomed to failing or falling off the rails, you know, and then they sort of sit there and they just let it soak in, you know, they get comfortable. You already hit on one of my leadership traits, right? Getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, which is in my philosophy. You notice like comfortable, man, that's not good. Comfortable is not good. It is not a winning trait. You have to get uncomfortable and you have to stay uncomfortable because that's how you notice those things. So you covered that. Let's talk about the why. Hit on, you know, can a why change? How can people find their why? What do you got for those that are maybe in that groove of doing the job, hacking the mish? How do they continue to give it their best effort when knowing like, hey, it's not recognized, maybe it's not recognized at the moment, but they need that why to push? Because we hit it on my last talk pretty good, and I'm glad it's always repeated. So, yeah, what do you got for those with the why?
The why. I mean, it's easy for parents, right?
Yeah,
because you can see who's watching you.
It should be that easy. Like it's the easiest thing. There's no excuse for a parent to be slacking. Honestly, like I was on another one and we were talking about heroes, and one of the guys was like my kids, and I was like, bro, every parent should have their kid as a hero. Like that's like a check mark filled in. You know, like same as your wife. You're a parent. Your kid or your spouse is your why. Cool. What else? Can you be a why? Can you be your why?
I would say yeah, you can, because the only person that knows you truly deep down is you. Besides your creator, obviously, right? But it's you waking up in the morning. It's you not eating breakfast in the morning. It's you not eating enough protein in the morning. You know, and it's like if you don't take care of you, who is?
Yeah.
You know,
nobody's gonna do it.
Yeah. No one's gonna grow ruck for you for 7 miles. Yeah. I'll go with you, but I'm not doing it for you.
I ain't gonna carry you.
No, I'm not carrying my load and you. No.
Yeah.
No. But deep down, really think about who would be the most proud of you if you completed X or Y or Z. You know, is it yourself? Is it your family? Is it one of your good friends you met, I don't know, through your other job or things like that, right? But you're still connected in some way. So finding that and grabbing onto it, right? Like I said, for the Norwegian and my family and stuff like that.
I think that's what some people have a hard time of, is grabbing onto it when they need it. A lot of people say they have a why, but I don't think they've been pushed enough to see how strong that why is. Like, honestly, there are a lot of people like, and that's why I think sometimes when it's a pet peeve of mine, obviously, when squadrons are like, your why is you get the B1s in the air, right? Like, what you do matters. We're putting bombs on targets. That's your why. And it's like, bro, that is not their why. Like, that is not going to get them through the tough. Like, that's what a why should be, to get you through the toughest part of your life. If that is not going to do it, that's literally just going to get the airmen probably to work on time. I need them to have a why, to look around when nobody's looking and do the right thing, not take the shortcut, pass the PT test with all they've given it. You know, like that's what a hard thing for a why is that why going to drown, or keep you afloat when you need it. Like, and a lot of people are probably like, "Oh, that's pretty extreme, man." You're like, "I don't need something like that." Come walk with me for 18 miles, and we'll find your why.
You'll find something, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully it's your why.
You'll either find the ground that you're asleep on.
Mm-hmm. Doing hard things also pushes you back on the why.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Good. Yeah.
And
it validates it, if anything. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. What I've loved so far is you've already hit my leadership philosophy parts of it, which is great. And obviously, for those listening, if you've listened to other episodes, I developed a leadership philosophy going through ACSC in the military as an officer. It's like our master's school per se. One of the classes developed leadership philosophy, which I really liked. Out of all the classes I can take, it's probably the only one I've liked so far, because I was in a point in my life where I was developing my leadership skills and all that. And so the first one is lead by example in all you do, which we've already covered in a few areas as far as getting to a new place where you realize, like, I'm in charge of this. I have to do this. We already talked about being in the shop. I want to be the person that's doing the job, like make sure they're doing it right. And then the second one is to be selfless. You have to be selfish, which we sort of already talked about. Better, you have to be able to do the job if you want other people to do it. Your why is sort of a selfish thing, right? Like that's going to motivate you to take care of yourself, to take care of your family. And most airmen see that as from like the supervisors and officers perspective, right? Like if an officer or supervisor is telling you to do something, they should be looking at you as if you could do it. Like that is one of the ultimate things in all leadership form. Even if I don't know your job per se, like I don't know exactly what you do at your job, but if I were to give you guidance, you should be able to look at me and go, if he were in my shoes, if he knew how to do it, he could probably do it. Like that's what that is right there. And then we also talked about building relationships, right? You talked a little bit about it. Relationships is huge. You talked about it in customer service. You talked about it with your family. How have you seen relationships in the security forces world or in the military world show itself when it's working? Like you talked about family. Oh, that's what I want to talk about. You talked about family is one of your traits. How do you embody a family in a military unit? It's hard where you have people come from. So what are some things people can do if they're listening and they're new in a shop and they're trying to build that cohesion in their squadron or flight, but they don't know how? What have you seen?
Mm-hmm. Another one of your philosophies is meet new people.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's uncomfortable, right?
Very
because you have to put yourself out there. And I would say just get to know the people. Spark up small conversations. How's your weekend? What'd you do? Find out if they have kids, dogs. Find out. People will tell you what they like, right? It's just you have to get them talking.
People want to talk about themselves. Too many times we don't think they want to, so we don't ask, or we think that we're going to ask the wrong question and they're going to call us dumb or stupid, or we get into our mind way too much on why we don't do things. But like you just said, people want to talk about themselves, and that's how, he's got to meet new people. That's usually a task of mine every day if I can when I go somewhere to say hi. Funny story on that, I was walking with JoJo around Redbud. It was around ACU. We went to the school after I picked up my kids, and obviously JoJo's like my super shy child. She will not talk to anybody in public. She's on my shoulders, and I was like, "Hey JoJo, we're gonna say hi to everybody we walk by. Just say hello, and that's something I've been trying to get better at too. Whenever I go somewhere, just say hi to people. A small conversation may lead into a big one. And it's funny with this generation because they don't do it. They either have headphones in or they're in their zone, or you just say hi and they're like, "Oh, somebody's talking to me. I don't know. What do I do?" And so I did it. I was walking by, and they were all younger than me, so it's probably super awkward, but I didn't care. I had to get better at meeting new people. And who knows, maybe I meet that person again one time, and I look at them and I go, "Didn't I see you?" That's how I remember that. And so I was like, "JoJo, you got to say hi too." She's like, No. She's like, "I'm not saying anything." I was like, "Fine, I'll do it." So I was like, "Hello." And, I get a couple, like, they sort of think, but then they're already by me, so they don't say anything. Some would be like, "Hey." Someone just head down. But I'm like, hey, that's how I get practice too, right? Like, I'm not going to bat 100. So, but if I get a couple, just say hi or hello, like, that's it. Meeting new people is tough. But it can definitely help. That's a good one.
And also, I think that the family cohesiveness with the unit is genuinely care for people. Ask questions, you know, like we have people leave work for various reasons, right? But check on them. Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? How are your kids? You don't have to be a supervisor to be the one to ask. You know, you're like, hey, I know you're going through something. Are you okay? You want to go for lunch? You want to talk about it? If not, cool. Right? Like, I'm not going to hold it against you, right? But, you know, the military as a whole is sort of lacking in, because you see, you know, the suicidal rate for all across the military. And you could change things, like you said, just saying hello, good morning, how are you? And it's just really that simple, right? But you got to dig a little bit deeper into it, right? But it's, you know, staying uncomfortable, as you said, in your own shoes, but also giving of yourself to others. And, you know, they could blow up on you. Like the whole list of things could happen, right? But just show genuine care for people and don't fake it, because people know.
Yes,
people know when to fake it.
Yeah, you can lose a lot of trust in that without intent or caring. That was on another, I don't know if it was a podcast I listened to. I think it was a podcast I was just listening to, but the same thing, you know. Someone was talking about, just go get to know people, but don't just go get to know people to do it, you know. Don't walk into a shop like you see a lot of officers and go, hey guys, how's it going today? Oh, you guys are crushing it, which happens every time. They should be, you know, if you take intent, you're honest, and you're truthful, like they know. People can, you know, like everybody knows if you mean it or not. And to help not, I guess, fake it, you have to do it. You have to do it a lot. You can't just expect to go into a shop and the first time you go there say, hey, how's everybody doing? And everybody answer your question, you know, like, oh, I'm doing great, sir, amazing, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have to go there 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 times for them to actually look at you and be like, oh, he's back again. Oh, man, maybe, okay, he's at a different time today, you know, or, you know, I saw him talking to this person. So maybe he really does care. Because trust is hard to build, but it's easy to lose.
Yeah, and I had my previous base, one of our previous commanders would come in all the time, and he'd be like, why is no one talking to me? You know, because he asked me.
Yeah.
Because I go up, talk to him, shake his hand, hey, sir, how are you? You know, things like that. Because my professional level game is like above the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Even in moments where it's like awkward, you know, because senior NCOs would be like, you know, relax. I'd be like, okay, but I have to show you the respect first, right? I have to give it first, and then you can say whatever you want to say. And he asked me, he's like, why is like no one talking to me? And like they're away from me and stuff like that. And I'm like, sir, you know, you have to look at it from their shoes, right? So your boss comes into work, and it's not your normal boss, your shift manager boss. You're like the boss. You're the final say all for our unit. And some people might find that awkward, you know? But like you said, exposure, getting out there, talking to people, being a trainer, being there. Like in the morning, our commander was giving us a speech before the people rubbed out and things like that. And I respect that. I love that stuff. I eat it up all the time. And not a lot of people like that, right? But that's variable upon the person, because I love it. And it just shows, you know, people are, he's just show face, whatever, right? But that's his time. You don't get time back. That's the most valuable resource in the world. It's time.
Yeah.
And just the fact that he's up this morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Friday. You know, these are outside of normal duty hours, you would say. And, you know, I love the Security Forces memes where it's like, stay warm, defender, you know, stay dry when it's raining and stuff like that. People get so mad. I'm telling you, people get so mad, right? And I'm just like, well, they're either doing it for one or two things, right? For the meme, like that's what they're doing to you, or people genuinely care for you. Like, what
Yeah, they're trying to give you a greeting.
What's the matter? Yeah. So it's all about mindset and who you're talking to. And that's the toughest things, because in training they tell you there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but there's 1,000 ways for you to look at something, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. And another great big one is perception is reality, and it's all about your point of view, your perspective, and I love it. Eat it up.
So right? I remember our discussion a few months ago when we talked about pictures. You were reading a book about how to greet people, right? What was that? Dang it. What was the book? It was a habits book, I think, or
how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah. Because I just got done reading it too. And it was like you were asking me, hey, when people come through the gate, should I recognize them by their name or something? Have you put that to use or anything? Or
no. So what I've been doing is just what I've been doing is the rank.
Yeah.
Even retired people, hey chief, hey senior, hey captain, how are you? Lieutenant, the whole slew of ranks, right? But the people that I'm cool with, I try to do that, but 9 times out of 10 we're too caught up in conversation, and I don't throw it out there.
Yeah.
But just acknowledging the rank, which is what I was taught in Airman's Week after basic training. Actually during basic training, because our drill instructor said, you will address people by their full rank. Major, insert name. Technical sergeant, insert name. Staff sergeant, insert name. So that's like in here. I'll be like, hey, senior, even if a senior in my unit, hey, senior, how are you?
Yeah.
Hey, chief, how are you? So.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing I've been trying to get better at is say their last name, to get to know them, and then I transition to like first name or something like that. Like I think it's Jones. If it's not, gentleman at the gate, super smiley all the time with mustache.
Jones.
I love Jones, man, and I know his name now. I'm like, "What's up, Jones?" Is he? And we just get fist bump, I'm like, "That's mustache." He's like, "Yeah, thanks, sir."
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's good. And so that's like what I can try to do, and it's always fun when I'm around, when I'm in my office. And airmen will walk by that I know, like outside of work, and like, "Yo, what's up, bro?" And then I can tell everyone's just like, "What is going on here?" I'm like, "Oh, dude, you hit the gym today?" Or because I've got to know them, through social media or something, or on our rucks, and they just don't know, and I'm just like, "What's up, Mike? How's it going, dude?"
Yeah, but it's breaking that non-standard, right?
Yeah. And it's definitely hard for me to do sometimes because I know people look at me and go, "Dude, that's unprofessional, man." I'm like, it's called building relationships. You should try it. You'll probably get a lot more work done.
And it's, people claim people first, but until it's time to choose people first, and then they're kind of like, mission, people. But you have to find that. You have to find that, like, line,
My biggest thing is people say there's not enough time to get to know everybody. So that's why they don't do it. And I'm like, bro, really? Like, it's hard for you to walk into a place and just ask somebody, like, do you have any kids? How old are your kids? It doesn't have to be, their whole life story in those 5 minutes you're there. But if you do it repeatedly for 5 to 6 months, you can go in 6 months later, be like, hey, it's Susan's birthday in a month, right? And the guy's going to be like, yeah, it is. And you're going to be like, oh, did you get her that, like, princess doll thing? And they're going to be like, dude, okay, yeah, I got you, like, that's where it matters. And that's what I've noticed, because I've been able to sort of do that the past few years as I've been transitioning to leader, like I have these small interactions with you guys on rucks. So we're over like every other Saturday, they pile up, and I'll be like, oh, hey, you were just on a vacation last week, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll talk about it during the ruck, or little things like that. And especially with people I meet, if there's something they tell me, I try to follow up with them a couple days later to see how it was. And it's those little things, but they add up. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes effort. But yeah, I do want to cover, obviously, religion, because, I believe in God, I think it's a huge motivational and leadership tactic or technique, and all that. And one of my podcast, we did talk about, how does that happen in a workplace? Is it, like, do you talk about it? I don't talk about it as much as I'm trying to think if I've ever needed it, though, in a workplace. I did go to a workplace where somebody told me, hey, the previous person was very religious, and they sort of pushed it, and so it already rubbed the flight wrong. So I had to sort of like take my religious card, which was weird, and like put it in my back pocket and be like, okay, well, I know that, so I won't I don't know, put my Bible, on my desk or whatever, or I won't be like, hey, let's pray, or something like that, even though I know it helps. But have you seen interaction like that? How does that go? What can somebody do if they are religious and they want to use that as a leadership tool? Because I think everybody is religious in some way, but it is definitely hard to talk about.
Well, I'm going to give you some scripture first because this is like what I want my life to be, right? And it's Philippians 4:10-13, the NIV version. And it says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And obviously, you have to do your due diligence and dig in the Bible for yourself and figure out the context of Philippians. But Paul is basically writing to the church and said, thank you for showing your concern for me. Thank you for giving me resources and things like that. But, you showed it to me. You showed the concern for me, right? And he appreciated that and things like that. And it's just that, and here it says, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And that's what I hope to live, And taking that into the leadership is, you basically take it to other people, right? And it's kind of awkward. Because people can reject you, they can call you, insert all these Bible names like a Bible thumper, a holy roller, things like that. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't force that on no one, right? Like, you allow Jesus Christ into your life, he just knocks at the door, and you have to open the door, right? But I'm not going to say, you're going to hell if you do this, that, and the other, right? That's not right. And you don't want, I would say, leadership, Christian leadership in the military is, like you said, leading by example. Like Maldonado, how are you able to do all these programs? How are you able to organize this and do that? And what I like to do is, one of my little secret things I like to do is I like to plug in the Bible.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, Maldonado, what are you doing this weekend? I'd be like, oh, I'm going to church on Sunday. I got men's group. Like, would you be interested in something like that? Like, I wouldn't be like, you should go. You need to go. You do this, and basically like slandering someone.
Yeah.
Right? And you learn to love first, no matter what, even if the person doesn't like you. And that's the hardest pill to swallow. But as a leader, it shows that you die to yourself and you give, even when it's not reciprocated. But I would say the biggest thing is stand firm in your beliefs, because people will try to rattle you and shake you. Like, oh, Maldonado believes in the Bible and all that stuff or whatever, and I'm not listening to him and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. But, if he's my troop, that's a little different, right? Because you have to give that respect of the rank at least, right? And you can't go against that, but you have to have valid reasons why, right? But I would say just leading by example, in how you act, talk, and operate, which ties into doing hard things. It's like, how are you able to do these hard things? Well, I'm so glad you asked, right? Because I pray. I pray about it because there's no way I could do this by myself. And they're like, oh, like you asked, like, what's your why? And I said my family and stuff, but, ultimately it's God, because I wouldn't be here without him. I wouldn't have survived my marriage without him, and it's really interesting because you see the younger airmen, and I'm 30. I'm pretty sure I'm older than my supervisor, but it's just that submission, because in the Bible you submit to leaders.
Yeah.
And I just find it funny. I think I am older than my supervisor, right? But I know what I need to do, how to do it, and if I don't know, I'm going to ask. I'm either going to ask him or the supervisor above him. But ask. Don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Not, no question is stupid, but people think that, right? But if you're in a room with 100 people and you ask this one question, I guarantee you over 50 people had the same question and they never asked.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is God fills your cup and you pour out to other people. And that's really important and huge in leadership.
Yeah.
Because we all go through our own things, right? And, going through my divorce and stuff, and now I see what I've been through. And now I can see, Airman Joe over here going through something similar, but hey, can we talk? Like, we can have lunch? Can we do something? Like, kind of break down the barrier that people have. It's just like, no. Like, I don't want to talk about it. It's just going to eat me up. But once you start talking about it, you start breaking it down, you start understanding. And, everything ties back to the Bible. And, from service on Thursday, it's just like, the pastor said, it's like the Bible's a soap opera. It's just so many crazy things that happen, and you read it, and you're just like, wow, this similar thing just happened, like, last week. It's like, I know the cheat codes now, or something similar of how to help me, and they're like, people are like, how do you manage all this stuff? And I was like, I have to write it down. I have to think about it. I have to prep. I have to. That's why I was freaking out about the podcast, because I was like, I don't have enough time, But I don't rely on my own strength. I rely on God's.
Yeah.
And Jesus, right? And the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity. And that's empowered me to impact others, whether talking to them, getting food, like, because the last week I was on, there's this thing called training, right? So you go to work and you help train flight members with certain things, right? And I was like, I had this idea. I was like, let's get everyone breakfast burritos. And people are like, we love you. And I was like, it wasn't me. Right? Like, it just fell in my head, right? And just give people food. Yeah. And that's like the basic thing, And that's what ties people together is like food. Like, you sit down, you eat food, you have discussions. Whether you want to push an envelope onto the discussion yourself and the other person, that's between y'all, right? But we're going to eat this food. And I will be there. You say food, I will be there, right? Yeah. Food or walk-in or fitness, we're going to be there, right? And that's the biggest thing for me is, lean not on your own understanding, but on His, right? And it's hard to live out, because you see firsthand people are struggling, and then also the same person struggling might not want help and things like that, but that's where you go as your spiritual route, as you pray. Either you tell them you're praying for them, which is up to you, right? Or just pray for them. And then the Lord will do the work, you just push it out.
Yeah, one of the biggest lines that helped me go through the past year when I was trying to figure out what to do with my career, or am I going to stay in the military, all this stuff, is I was listening to a sermon from Stephen Furtick, and he talked about, it was just simple. It was like, it's just God knows. And he was just talking about how what you're doing right now, He knows you can get through it. Or it was God knows, but then it was also or God already knew. Like, he already knew you were going to go through this. He already knows what's going to happen after. So, like, literally throughout my whole deployment, every time I was doing something, I was like, man, why is this happening? And then I was like, oh, he already knows why it's happening. This should be happening. You know, like, and I was like, I'm supposed to do this, you know? And I was like, man, when you understand, like, those things are happening for a reason and they're leading you somewhere and he knows where you're going and why you're going through it, definitely helps just continue going forward. And it was good. I was like, holy crud. Like,
I love me some Stephen Furtick. Yes.
All right. What book did you bring for the masses today?
All right. It's UOU.
Wait, I just saw that book on an Instagram post today
by the hip hop preacher Eric Thomas.
The old E.T.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
I did not know he wrote a book until you're the second person in 2 days I've seen that.
Mm-hmm. I read this
while I was downrange.
A little bit, in the beginning.
Get up and
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But funny story about Eric Thomas, right? So I went to this conference in January of last year. Or was it 2 years ago? I can't remember. But one of the guest speakers was Eric Thomas, right? And before we went on lunch that day, the pastor of the event was like, be on guard because the devil's going to try something, right? And that went right here and went right out, right? Because you're just like, okay, he's always there, And I should have listened, right? So I go grab lunch, I park my car, and I'm closing the back, trunk of my car, right? So I'm closing it. It's slowly going down, and I'm like, my keys are in the trunk. Boom, closed. And I own a Volkswagen, so you can't, pop the lock and then, open it from the electrical button. Can't do that. Learn the hard way. So they popped my lock, and I went to go hit the button. I'm like, the button sounds okay. YouTube. Let's go look this up. So I have to find a tool. I have to go ask the parking valet, like, hey, do you guys have a wrench or something? I'm trying to get into my car. I like my keys in the trunk. I swear I'm not stealing it. Like, this is, I'll show you my registration, right? And I get everything I need. I pull the thing out. I get in the trunk. I get everything I need. I give the guy back the tools. I close it. I bolt. I run back into this conference. Cowboy boots, flannel, running inside this convention center. And I get all the way up there, and I'm like, and I asked the lady, I was like, did Eric Thomas go on, right? And she's like, honey, I'm so sorry. You just missed him. And I was like, so the moral of the story is, leave the keys in the trunk and go to the event.
Go listen to E.T.
But I ended up meeting a great bunch of people, and they gave me the notes of what he talked about. And I think there's a video on it too. Yeah, I think there's a video. They released a video. So, I mean, realistically, the part I missed was the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like sitting there listening to him and seeing him. And that tied into I was like, I can't believe this. I just missed this whole thing. But then God was like, did you really come here to see Eric Thomas? And I was just like, you got me.
Yeah.
And that's why I got his book.
Nice. I got to read that one soon. Yeah. All right. So I will present. I don't keep much books on my phone because I like to do a lot of paperbacks. But one of the only ones that I've read multiple times on my phone is Atomic Habits. Obviously, a great book. I was just going to pull up just so I remember the author's name. Yeah, James Clear. That's what I thought it was. Yep. Very actionable book. So I tell people there are two types of books I like to read. Actionable books where I can take things from them, apply them to my life, and win, right? Atomic Habits, perfect example. 3 people you surround yourself with, the many, the close, the powerful. That is how you will build all your habits. That's a huge rant I can go on later, but that's what I always take from that book, and it applies to everything I do. And then I also read books on biographies, history, stuff like that, so I can see leadership traits in real world, I just read a concise biography on Napoleon. I just got done reading one about an army colonel. Now I'm reading Arnold's, because I like reading those because I could see those leadership traits in real life, and then obviously read about their stories, which are phenomenal as well. So Atomic Habits is what I'm bringing to the table. You got UOU. I'll put that in the show notes. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way they can do it? Do you want me to put your email in there, or what do you want?
Honestly, you can give my number. I'm an open book, right?
I'll put your Instagram in there then.
Okay, that works. Yeah. You can put Instagram, email.
Okay.
I'm just an open book. I'm not afraid to share things like, people think of taboo like, how much money you make? People are like, what are you asking for? I'm just like, dude, here's everything. Like, if you really want to find it, you're going to find it, right? Yeah, you're not missing much. Okay, come catch me on the rock. That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
you got any last parting shots or anything? Or
I do. So I was listening to one of Jocko's podcasts, and he said, if you don't have a mission, then your mission is to help someone, is to, provide, help. The saying goes is like, when you make it big, bring someone with you.
Yeah. I just added that to my leadership trait because somebody told me that. They said, oh man, I'm trying to think what episode it was. It's going to bug me. They said whenever they try to do good things, they bring someone with them. And I was like, bro, I freaking
so
love that.
That's what I was doing with my buddy on the rock. When we were deployed, we were trying to do the same organizational stuff together. And I was always one step ahead of him before he asked me, right? And I was like, dude, we're on the same wavelength. But I want you to do it. Even though I'm not going to be with you, I'll help you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just that mentality of, like I said earlier, let's go do this rock. I'll go with you. I know it doesn't count for me, but it counts for you. And just Jocko said it, if you don't have a mission, people, go find someone, and just either pour into them, show them what to do versus what not to do, and just give them your experience, because if you read Maldonado on a piece of paper, 30 years old, senior airman, E4, you're like, dude, this guy's 30 years old, it's E4? It's like, no. My first name's Michael, and I love to do all these things, right? And that's the part of getting out, getting to meet people, and, obviously people have their own opinions of you and things like that, but it's all about what you know about yourself, right? And the hardest thing for me is I always used to defend myself, even if it was wrong. They'd be like, oh, Maldonado's a liar, or Maldonado is lazy, things like that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, dude, what?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
But it took a long while for that to happen. And sometimes now and then it still might hit me, but I know me, and I know what I'm going to do. And if I need help, I'm going to ask you, right? It doesn't matter what rank you are, I'm going to be humble enough to be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing when I write, packages or my own EPB or something like that. But can you show me? Just feed me information that I don't know so I can do it and I can teach someone else, which, leaders never stop learning and leaders never stop leading.
Yep.
And leaders lead at all levels. And you've taught me that and showed me that. And I'm just like, dude, what? I can lead as a senior airman? And it's like, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice. I love it, man. That's good. Well, perfect. Everybody listen, thank you. And like I said, if you did not learn anything, you must have been on mute the whole time because I have a full page of notes here. So go out there, share it, talk about it, hit us up if you have any questions. That's all we ask for. It's pretty simple. We want to keep doing these, keep helping people just develop that leadership tool belt to go out and just be the better person they can be. But cool. With that, we will end it. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I'll put your stuff in the notes, and I will see you hopefully on a ruck here soon, man.
Yes, sir.